So we will gonna create a new JSP page. We're gonna call this one server info. Your computer name you will see an IP version 6 IP address, which is a loopback IP address, because the client and server are on the same computer. If you notice here, the scriptlet only has one instruction, correct? Right? So what JSP does, when a scriptlet has only one instruction and that instruction is an output instruction, JSP gives you a shorter version of writing the same instruction. And the shorter version of writing the same instruction is, you start out with a scriptlet and you put an equals. That equals mean that whatever I'm about to give you next, display that on the screen as it is. So it is equivalent to writing out.println in parentheses. Inside there, you simply write request.getRemoteHost. You don't even have to use semicolon, nothing. And they're going to turn out to be just exactly the same. So let me comment this out in HTML, this whole thing, to show you that this is same as that. So that will going to save you from having to write all that. So this is a common practice among JSP developers, that they would use this syntax when there's only one entity that needs to be output in the middle of the HTML code. So that equals to is equivalent to out.println in parentheses. Okay, so now let me copy this and paste it a couple more times. Now I'm going to grab a web server by calling the request.getServerName. And then let me grab the server port number. And that'll be request.getServerPort. So now when I run this, I get the server, again it's a local host, and then I get the port number. Since it's Apache, on Windows, the IIS has a port number 80. So Apache by default always registers itself on port 8080. So that's basically our port number here on this web server as well, 8080. Again, the benefit of a port number is that port number is a combination of the listening point where your server is listening. So a combination of IP address and port number, that's what makes a socket. There is one more item to pay attention to in these three lines, and that is a request object. Request.getServerName or getRemoteHost. So request is a built-in object in JSP. This is the object that JSP page will use whenever it needs something from the client, request. So let's say if a client has an HTML form and client sends something over to a JSP page, request object will be used by the JSP page to pull the information out of the form. So what is the opposite of request? Response. So anytime JSP wants to send something to the client, he'll use response. For example, if the JSP is interested in redirecting a client to a different URL. So client comes on one URL and it needs to be redirected. So JSP will say response dot, because that's a response from JSP to the client. It's a redirection response. But anytime it needs information from the client, it's request. Okay? So when we start working with forms later today, you will see that we're going to use request object and we're going to use .get parameter. And then that's how it pulls information from a form.